All right, let's take a look at an example of how to set up your family pedigree project. So remember, we need at least 3 generations and we need 10 individuals. We need to make sure that everything is labeled, including some names. So my first heredity trait is I'm going to track a long second toe. So I've gathered some pictures of some of my family members that I had. And just as we go ahead and we start our key, we know that our circles are going to represent our females. We know that the squares are going to represent the males. Now this is going to be a recessive trait that we are tracking, and it's important to note that so we know what is going to be shaded. So that means if it is shaded, they have a long second toe. And since it's a recessive trait, that's going to be represented by lowercase t, lowercase t. Okay, let's start to put this family line together. Now, you can use pictures, or you can also draw in the shapes. So I'm going to start with moving my parents. So here's my mom, and here's my dad. My grandmother is my dad's mom. My parents had my brother, and then me. I married Mr. Lowe. My brother married Brenda. They had 2 kids, Taylor and Aiden. Okay, so now let's go ahead and put in some marriage lines to connect these. So here is my parents, who've had 2 children, married, had 2 children, and marriage line there. Okay, now my grandfather, I do not have an image of, but they had my dad and my aunt Marlene. And my mom's parents, I unfortunately did not have the opportunity to get to know, as they both passed as she was very, very young. So now, as we trace this through, first thing I need to mark is who has those long second toes. So my dad has the long second toe, so that automatically will make him lowercase, lowercase. So that means he is shaded in. So I'm going to go ahead and outline that. Make that a little bit easier to see here. And he is lowercase, lowercase. I also have a long second toe. So I'm going to shade me in, which makes me lowercase, lowercase. My grandmother has the long second toe, so we're going to shade her in, which makes her lowercase, lowercase. My brother has the long second toe, so we're going to shade him in. And now you could also use some solid blocks. That makes him lowercase, lowercase. And my nephew has it. Okay, so now let's build some genotypes from there. Okay, let's go ahead and start with my parents. My dad has it, but my mom does not. Okay, but yet my brother and I do. So we've definitely gotten our recessive alleles from one from dad, but we also have had to have gotten one from mom. So if mom doesn't have it, that makes her dominant. So she must have 1 capital, 1 lowercase. That makes her a hybrid or heterozygous. So she gave us each her allele. Now, one thing we know about each of these individuals that don't have it is they all have 1 dominant trait, because that has to for sure be there for them not to have it. So now let's figure out their second alleles. Okay, as we take a look at my dad's, and actually my aunt has it too, so let me go ahead and put that in there. So as we take a look at my dad's parents, okay, my grandmother had it, so she had the lowercase allele for the recessive trait. My grandfather did not. However, in order for my aunt and for my dad to both have it, they had to get the recessive alleles from one from mom and one from dad. So dad has to be heterozygous for both my dad and my aunt to be recessive. They've got the smaller alleles from both parents. As we take a look over at my brother's family on the left, he has it, his wife does not, but yet their son does have it. So therefore she must be a carrier in order to pass the lowercase allele. Now, as for my niece Taylor, can't tell for sure because we don't have a generation thereafter. So she could be the T plus or the T minus, meaning that she could be dominant or dominant recessive. The same thing will hold true for Mr. Lowe. Without further evidence, we're not sure and we can't be for certain what exactly it is. So this is one way to go ahead and set up your chart. Now we do need to make sure that we give it the proper labeling. So I'm going to go ahead and now mark our generations. Here's generation 1, generation 2, generation 3, generation 4, and our individuals are 1, 2, 3. So now we have all our key labeling. We know that this is in fact a recessive trait. So then that means the people who have it are recessive. Now the one thing that I may want to note is that the ones who have it, I have outlined in the red. Okay, so I didn't go over top of their pictures. Now if you were doing just the simple shapes, you would just need to simply shade them in. You also, for the carriers, could shade halfway. That's up to you. Be creative, add some images into your background, okay, and make it personal. All right, then write a couple little sentences to follow up. All right, you've got it. If you have questions, let me know.